The baselines are 65 feet. So from home to first, second to third, each one of those is 65 feet. There's a new thing with home plate, and that's actually the orange sheet, which is next in line. If you want to grab that, this is going to be a little bit different. Hopefully this diagram makes sense to you. I'll cover home plate actually right now. This is the new rule for this upcoming season. So when you practice, try to practice this way. Some of your fields won't allow, but it's actually a lot closer, and we'll walk through when we go around the bases and stuff. But basically with this diagram, it's C, so all the C rules is at the bottom. Everything, there should be no more plays of the plate with contact. We're going completely away from it. So no matter what, whether the ball is being thrown home or not, the player will actually touch the second safety base, which is behind, which is this big one here on your diagram. So now plays at the plate, there will be no tags. It will automatically be a force out, just like you would get someone out of first base. As long as the ball beats them there and the catcher is standing on home plate, not on the safety base, but on home plate, that runner is deemed out. Now if the ball goes over the catcher's head and they run back, they have to run to the original home plate, not to the safety base. So they can't run to the closer base to get the out, they have to go back to their original base. Is this clear to everyone? Does this make sense? The line that we have here is called the 20-foot line. Once the runner rounds third base and starts to take off towards home plate, if they pass the 20-foot line, they have to continue to go home. There is no rundown where if they go 25 feet, they can turn back around and run. Once they cross that line, they have to go to home plate. Okay? Now they shouldn't have to slide into home plate. That's kind of the key. Now they might have to avoid something. So always teach your runner to continue to run past home plate, to step on it and keep running, just like you would when you run into first base. All right? Force out at the plate now. All right? Everyone, makes sense to everyone? It's pretty simple. Okay, so we'll go back to the rules. The next big change this year, what's going on, guys? The next big change this upcoming year is pitching. We've had, I guess, some issues with pitching. In the past, at state tournament and stuff, they've actually let the pitchers move up, and that was a big no-no, because if someone would get hurt, it would be us on the line. So we actually caught it this year that Special Olympics org has actually changed their rule, so we're just abiding by their rules. There's a sign-in sheet, folder. There you go. So now we've actually conformed to what Special Olympics Inc. does. So I'm kind of really excited about it, but this is really on the coach to pay attention to, yes.
Okay, what determines, so in other words, they have to pitch, like let's say they pitch from the 40 feet spot. Do they have to pitch from that spot the entire game?
Let me get to that. Okay, so now we'll look at diagram A on your sheet. I made this, by the way. This was pretty cool.
Very nice, very nice.
Way too much time on your hands.
I know, right? Man, rough crowd today. All right, so basically, everyone can see this line on the field. Each one of your fields, so when you are setting your field up or someone sets it up for you, make sure they put this line on there. Basically, it's going to be directly in between home plate and second base, just like a regular pitching rubber would be. There will be a straight line. Out there, I have a piece of duct tape that is marking from that 40-foot mark all the way to the 50-foot mark. Okay? So when your pitcher starts that inning, you either tell the umpire as a coach, for your pitchers that don't know, you tell the umpire, we want to throw from 40 feet, we want to throw from 45, we want to throw from 50. Now you can throw from 42, you can throw from 43, wherever that pitcher's comfortable in that line. Alright? So once you start the inning at that spot, you have to stay there until the coach, so say your pitcher, he walks three batters in a row. As a coach, you can go out and it's called a mound visit, and you can move that rubber to 40 feet to 50 feet, wherever you want, but that counts as a mound visit. Okay? Every time you move the rubber, it counts as a mound visit. That takes away from, as a coach, you go, okay, I get 2 strikes, well now I'm going to back up to 50 feet and I'm going to throw from there. Alright? Each time you move it, it counts as a mound visit. You get 3 visits per game, and then you have to take the pitcher out each time you go to the mound. Right? So does that make sense? So you don't get charged at the beginning of the inning. Now your pitcher's going to be comfortable at what they can throw, okay? If you have a pitcher that you don't think he can move out of the way, I would practice from 50 feet, be farther back. If you have a pitcher that can't get it there, but they're okay defensively, or maybe you're playing the lower division, you know those hitters, they're not going to hit it very hard, then move up to the 40. That's where you need to know your team, know what team you're playing. And if it's the same thing, you call time and go, okay, we're going to move back. I know we practiced there, but I think you're going to get hurt, so we'll move back. All right? Does that make sense to everyone? So you establish where you want to throw from in the beginning of the inning, and then you can move it, but it counts as a mound visit each time that you would move
What
it.
happens after you use up your 3 mound visits?
Each time the pitcher if you take the pitcher out, he can't come back in to pitch, but if you move him to like right field, a new pitcher has to come in after the 3 mound trip.
Oh, okay.
Each time you would go out to talk to the pitcher or move, a new pitcher has to come
3
in.
mound visits on one particular pitcher, not 3 mound visits on 3 different pitchers.
Per game. It's per game. Because we don't want you out there every inning doing the same thing. And that's regular baseball has that same rule. Now they do 2 per inning in baseball, so 1's free and then the
You go
second one
out there,
counts.
every time you go out there, you have to
Yeah,
change
just
the
getting this
picture.
clarified. My pitcher's out there and he's struggling. So I go out and talk to him and I move him back to 45. I can leave him there and come back, but the second
The
time I
next
come
inning you
in,
come out, you can put him back at 40 or put him wherever. We just don't want that delay in the game where every inning we're moving that rubber. So each inning, you wipe the slate clean, you can start from 50 that inning or you can start from 40 that inning.
Because that was my next question. There's got to be a rubber there because they have to start with a foot on the
Yes.
rubber.
Yes. Now your dirt fields, it's going to be easier because they'll have those stakes on the side. They can lift the stakes up and they can set it south. Now if you like we have today, it's kind of harder because we're just using it's just a placemat out there. All right. So it's easier to move, but like I said, here that's what we have, but we'll have it staked in the ground for safety reasons other places. Anyone else have questions on any of that?
Can the pitcher move it himself?
No, the pitcher cannot move it himself. Once it's established, it's established. So now the pitcher can tell the umpire, I need to move it, that still counts as a mound visit. Anytime that rubber is moved, it counts as a mound visit.
Hot dog.
Is everyone good with all of that? All right, while I'm on this orange page, I don't know how many of you have athletes with physical disabilities or physical assistance, whether it's a walker, a wheelchair, something like that. They can still play in our game according to our rules. They just are forced to play an outfield position, which is strictly safety, and they actually can bat and do everything else. As B says here, we actually take a throw down base and we set it in the coach's box on first base. Now third base, you'll have this extended line. They will not have a separate run line to get to the first base, just because it's such a rare occurrence that we have actually only had one person at state do it, and he's made it 2 years in a row. He's actually really good. So say he cracks one of the outfield, he gets to first base, he has to stop at first base. He can't keep advancing. Now if he hits over the fence, it's a home run. But he has to stop at first base no matter what, and then they have a courtesy runner that will come out and run for him. Then he comes off the field.
I have a question. We have a young man who's blind. Would they allow us to use the beeper ball for him?
Use a what ball?
We have a
beeping
beeper ball for him?
Right now, we do not have that in our rules. It might be something we can look at.
Because that's what we use to play.
And it works well.
Yeah, somebody usually is with him, but
Yeah. Right now, we don't have anything for that. Skills would probably be the best, and they would probably let you use a beeping ball for skills. So, any questions on that? Like I said, it's just a throwdown base that we set out there. They run to that base, and that's all. Okay.
You're cleared.
All right, so let's move on to the bats. All the bats, you cannot use a baseball bat, okay? It has to be an official softball bat. So there's different kinds of softball bats. It can be a fast pitch or a slow pitch, but it has to be an official softball bat. You cannot use a baseball bat. There's several teams that try to do it, and a huge barrel is just not fair. Catcher's gear. Catchers will wear the mask and they wear a chest protector. That's the only 2 things that they need. And they stand behind home plate, usually stop the ball and then throw it back to the pitcher. But they must wear the mask and the chest protector. All our cleats are rubber cleats. Don't get metal cleats. Especially if you're playing on a field like this. Most of them won't let you. But get rubber cleats or tennis shoes, no cowboy boots, just like regular bats should be. 12-inch softballs, are used, we use the, Tyler, would you mind tossing me one of those yellow ones? They're a yellow ball. We don't use the white ones, we use the yellow ball. And they're a red dot is what you're looking for, a red flyer. And we have the model right here. So you can just type that in on any website you're shopping and they'll pop right up. They're a very common softball. All right, helmets are also one thing to kind of make sure you have good ones. They have to have the chin strap going across the bottom. They can have the face mask, they can have whatever else to cover the face, but just make sure they have the chin strap that goes across the bottom. Make sure your athlete too, whether they touch home plate, they can't take that helmet off right away, right? Now, as everyone knows, we get volunteer officials and stuff, so sometimes things aren't enforced, but I would just challenge you to make sure your athletes are safe and make sure they keep that helmet on until they get to the dugout. There's also no on-deck hitter in slow pitch softball, so your hitter actually waits in the dugout and then goes up and he can take a couple practice swings before he gets to the plate, but we don't want anyone on the field of play that isn't actually playing at the time. Our games are seven innings and our hour-and-a-half time limit. A lot of times the games move slow, so please try to get your athletes in and out of the dugout. Good things to remember, if you have all of your outfielders, you know who's going to play outfield, put their gloves on one side of the dugout. If you have all the infielders, put their gloves on the other side of the dugout. I know it's hard to maintain and control, but the quicker you can get them out of the dugout, the more innings and the more times they get a bat. And we want to see 7-inning games. We don't want to see 3-inning games that no one gets to play. All right. Pitching, we're going to cover more of this later, but there's an arc. It's got to be at least 6 feet high. It's got to be 12 feet high, or 6 and 12 in between there. Now remember, our officials, a lot of them are ASA officials, and they're used to a strike mat. I don't know if anyone knows what a strike mat is, but there's a little black mat that is right behind home plate, and it has to hit that mat to be a strike. We don't use the strike mat for several different reasons. Practicing, it's kind of a good idea because it gives them something to aim for, and I actually have those big bins over there we're going to use a little bit later when we're working on pitching. All right, pitching is very important. You really need a good pitcher. 2 of them would be awesome, but if you really need that one good pitcher, because poor Rich and the Bolts, they played last year, and they ended up walking every time. It's not really fair to the other team because they want to swing. They're not up there not trying to swing. So if you can't do anything else at practice, at least work on that for a good 15 to 20 minutes. Pull the guy's side or gal side and work with them on pitching. Any questions on pitching? I know I said we're going to cover more later.
Do you have any idea why they don't want to use the strike mat? Because it's so hard for some kids?
We actually just talked about this in policies and procedures, and my biggest thing with the strike mat, if you have the strike mat, your umpires are going to be forced to call strikes when it hits the mat. If the score's getting out of hand, it's a lot easier for our umpires now to go, well, that was close, that's a strike. Where they would feel more obligated to say that has to hit the mat. You can expand the strike zone a little bit, not to keep the score close, but an umpire can tell one way or another. So that's one of the reasons we don't use it right now. 10 batters play and 10 batters hit. You can use an extra player, which would be basically an extra hitter. So then all 11 batters would play. It wouldn't. You don't replace a player; they would play. There's no courtesy runners except for in the adaptive. Okay, so as you can see in B2, we use a double safety base. A lot of times it's like a pink or orange base. We don't have one out here right now. But as a base runner, teach your runners you're going to that safety base all the time. Now, unless there's a throw that forces the runner to go the other side, you can touch their base. You can touch either base as long as you're avoiding contact. If you're going out of your way to hit someone, the umpire can call you out. Okay. One thing we're going to touch on with base running, at first base, remember you can run past the base. As long as you don't go in fair territory and make an attempt to go to second, you can run past the base. Okay, that's something that it's really hard to teach a lot of our athletes. They get to that base and they stand on there, but it's good to get more momentum and move past the base. Any questions on anything I've covered so far?